What if the most respectful person in the room is also the most dangerous? We've been taught to take respect at face value. A gentle tone, a polite nod, a compliment at just the right time. But what if those signals are not signs of admiration, but camouflage? In every room of power, there's a language no one admits they speak. It's not spoken through words, but through performance. And in that performance, respect is often the most convincing lie. Somewhere in history, respect transformed. Once the sign of mutual recognition, it became a tool, not to lift others, but to manage them. Nietzsche called this shift slave morality. The moment the powerless reframe their submission as virtue. When humility became a disguise for resentment. When politeness stopped being kind and became controlled. Machiavelli took it even further. He warned rulers to appear moral, not be moral, because appearance is power. A cruel ruler who seems gracious survives, but a kind one who seems weak never does. This is the contradiction we live in, a culture that praises civility while quietly rewarding manipulation. You don't get ahead by being honest. You get ahead by being unreadable, smooth, charming, respectful, in all the ways that don't matter. And so, a new type of predator emerged, the one who knows how to bow before they strike, the one who smiles as they measure your weakness, who praises you in public but positions you as disposable in private, who studies your ego like a map and gives you exactly the validation you crave, just long enough to win your trust. This isn't just in politics or corporate boardrooms. It happens in classrooms, in marriages, in so-called friendships. It's the mask of respect worn by those who need you. Compliant, because real respect is dangerous. It demands truth. It risks tension. It honors your autonomy even when it's inconvenient. But fake respect? That's smooth, painless, deferential, and hollow. And that hollowness is precisely its power. Because once you mistake it for something real, you stop defending yourself. You lean in, you relax, you become open. And once you're open, they move. We admire those who never raise their voice. But maybe we should ask why they never have to. What have they already taken from the room? Without saying a word. The most dangerous people often appear the most agreeable. Because performance is disarming. Deference is anesthetic. And in a world obsessed with politeness, we rarely see the sword hidden behind the smile. So if respect can be faked and weaponized, how do we tell the difference? That's where the test begins. Because those who pretend to respect you will leave clues. And once you learn how to see them, their mask, no matter how polished, begins to crack. Let's start with the first. The compliment that conquers. Is praise always a gift, or can it be a leash? We crave recognition, a kind word, a nod, of approval. A well-placed compliment. It makes us feel seen, valuable, humans. But there's a darker layer to flattery, one rarely named and even more rarely resisted. Because the moment praise becomes predictable, it becomes powerful. In psychology, there's a concept called reward dependence. It's the tendency to seek approval and affection from others, especially those we see as higher status. When someone who holds power over us, a parent, a boss, a partner, gives us praise, it doesn't just boost our mood, it trains our behavior. This is the logic of operant conditioning. Reward a behavior, and you increase the likelihood it will be repeated. Compliment someone just after they agree with you, and they'll be more likely to agree again. Praise someone's loyalty just after they compromise, and they'll start associating surrender with love. And slowly, without knowing it, they'll perform for approval. Like a lion coaxed into sitting still by a trainer's soft voice. Not because it forgot it had claws, but because it learned that purring gets rewarded and roaring gets ignored. In ancient Rome, emperors mastered this art. Before ordering betrayals or crackdowns, They'd often offer lavish praise. Public declarations of virtue, gifts, titles. They understood that a compliment weakens suspicion, that once you feel admired, you stop preparing for the attack. Julius Caesar was known to flatter his political opponents before outmaneuvering them. He knew that a compliment creates a debt, one not easily questioned without appearing ungrateful. Today, it's not so different. The executive who tells you you're invaluable, right before denying your raise. The partner who says you're perfect, just after ignoring your boundaries. The influencer who praises your open mind. As they slip in manipulative dogma, it feels good. It feels safe. But that safety is often a transaction, not a truth. And that's the trap. Manipulative compliments aren't lies. They're carefully calibrated truths, offered with strategic timing, not to empower you, but to soften you, not to celebrate who you are, but to shape who you become. It's why praise from someone you admire feels addictive, why one compliment can override weeks of silence or disrespect, because it creates a pattern. Behave the way they like, and you'll be seen. Deviate, and you'll disappear. The compliment becomes a compass, not guiding you toward truth, but pulling you toward obedience. This is how empires condition loyalty, not through force, but through reward. This is how narcissists maintain control, not by rage, but by rationing praise. This is how ideologies recruit believers, by first making them feel special, and it's why fake respect is so hard to detect, because it doesn't always look like manipulation. It looks like care, like interest, like admiration, until the day you say no, and the warmth turns cold. That's the clue. If someone's respect for you depends on your compliance, it's not respect. It's control. If someone's compliments disappear when you speak up, you were never seen, only shaped. Real validation doesn't punish independence. Real admiration survives disagreement. But false respect, it melts the moment you stop performing. So, ask yourself, whose praise feels like oxygen? Who can silence your instincts with a single compliment? Because once you know where your reward dependence lives, you'll know who's holding the leash. And perhaps more importantly, you'll realize when to let it go. But what happens when they stop complimenting you altogether? When, instead of warmth, you get silence? That brings us to the next clue. The absence that speaks volumes. The power of being strategically ignored. Why does the one who respects you never defend you when it counts? It's easy to believe that cruelty always announces itself, that the ones who hurt us will do so loudly, unmistakably. But often, the sharpest betrayals don't come from harsh words. They come from silence, a silence that arrives at the very moment you need to be seen. When the crowd turns on you, when injustice unfolds in plain sight, and the person who claims to respect you looks away. Respect is not proven by politeness. It's revealed in risk. And silence, in moments that demand moral presence, is not neutrality. It's complicated, dressed in quiet clothes. Carl Jung wrote of the shadow, the hidden part of the psyche that avoids accountability, that fears being seen as flawed. Many wear masks of politeness, reason, or professionalism, not out of integrity, but to avoid confronting their own fear of social rejection. They don't want to risk losing power, status, or safety, so they stay quiet. And by doing so, they become safe havens for cruelty to thrive. This is the hidden function of silence. It preserves the illusion of goodness while enabling harm. In Nazi Germany, many citizens claimed ignorance. "We didn't know," they said. "We were just following orders." But the truth is more sinister. In many towns, smoke from concentration camps was visible. Ash floated through villages like snow. And yet, entire communities said nothing. Because silence was safer. Silence didn't demand a reckoning. Silence let them sleep at night. In today's world, it looks different, but feels the same. A manager watches a coworker get publicly undermined and says nothing. A friend hears you being disrespected behind your back and laughs politely, then tells you they didn't want to. Make it worse. A partner sees your boundary being crossed by someone close to them and chooses silence over conflict. It's the quiet that pierces deepest, because in that moment you realize the respect was conditional, that their admiration was only strong enough to survive comfort, not conflict. This is what makes it a clue. When someone constantly avoids defending you, even when they know you're right, they're not neutral. They're strategic. They're calculating the social cost of standing beside you and quietly deciding you're not worth it. They'll praise you in private, but vanish in public. They'll call you strong as an excuse to not stand up for you. And when the worst happens, they'll say, "I didn't want to get involved." That is not respect. That is cowardice, dressed in diplomacy. And perhaps the most chilling part, they'll often believe they did nothing wrong, because silence doesn't leave fingerprints. But now, you know better. You know that real respect makes noise. Real respect speaks, even when it's inconvenient. Even when it costs something. So the next time you're left alone in the fire, notice who turns away. That silence isn't empty. It's full of information, and it leads us to the next clue, where silence turns into something even more invasive. The subtle art of boundary violations, disguised as closeness. What if their helpfulness is just another form of control? There's a kind of disrespect so subtle, it's mistaken for care, so warm, it feels like love. But under the surface, it suffocates. This is the invasion that doesn't knock. It smiles, steps inside, and calls itself concern. They say they're just trying to help, that they only want what's best for you. But the help never seems to leave space for your voice. The concern always seems to come with a condition. Their kindness feels like surveillance, like every decision you make is being silently judged from behind soft eyes. This is the third clue, the kind of false respect that doesn't push you. It pulls you into submission with velvet ropes. Michel Foucault warned us about this dynamic. Power doesn't always wear a uniform or raise its voice. True control, he argued, works through gentle correction. It watches, advises, and reshapes. It pretends to liberate, while subtly limiting who you're allowed to be. You see it in the overbearing parent who can't let their child grow up. "I'm just worried about you," they say, while rewriting your choices in the language of fear. You see it in the boss who micromanages every task, not because they don't trust your skills, but because they can't bear to lose control. You see it in friends or partners who wrap their insecurities in concern, disguising criticism as caretaking. Over time, their concern becomes a script you're forced to follow. Every decision you make, what you wear, who you date, how you spend your time becomes subject to their quiet corrections. And if you push back, you're accused of being ungrateful, defensive, dramatic, because the genius of this form of disrespect is that it masquerades as virtue. They are not dominating you, they're just looking out for you. They are not invading your life. They're simply worried. But the net effect is the same. Your autonomy erodes, your boundaries blur. You start to question whether your instincts can be trusted. Respect, when real, does not hover. It honors distance. It allows space for mistakes, for silence, for self-definition. But when kindness becomes a leash, when care becomes correction, the relationship is no longer about you. It's about control, dressed in intimacy, and, like the flower that's watered too often, what began as nurturing becomes smothering. The stem bends under the weight of too much help. What once grew freely now clings to survive. That's how the gentle invasion works. It replaces freedom with obligation and masks control as closeness. But even this is not the end of the illusion. Because the next clue reveals something even more unsettling. That false respect isn't just about tone or boundaries. It's about timing. When people pretend to respect you only when it's convenient. When the performance of honor arrives exactly when they need something in return. Respect that's conditional on opportunity isn't respect at all. Why do they only praise you once everyone else already does? It's a strange kind of silence, the one that echoes during your climb, but vanishes once you've reached the top. Suddenly, the people who were nowhere to be found now have their hands outstretched in celebration. They tell you they always believed in you, that they saw it coming, that they were on your side the whole time. But where were they when it mattered? This is the fourth clue, the applause that arrives too late, the kind that follows success, but never helps build it, the kind that feels like respect, but smells like opportunism. It's easy to mistake this kind of praise as sincere. After all, it sounds sweet. It flatters your ego. It validates your struggle. But the timing tells a deeper story, one of distance, calculation, and survival. Because in truth, many people withhold their support not out of doubt, but out of fear. Fear of aligning with the unproven. Fear of standing beside someone who might fail. Or worse, someone who might challenge the very structures they benefit from. Carl Schmitt, the controversial political theorist, once said that politics is defined by the distinction between friend and enemy. But in the social world, that line is rarely declared outright. Instead, it's drawn in silence. Who shows up when the cameras are off? Who defends you before your name is safe to say out loud? Throughout history, the pattern repeats. Galileo, exiled and condemned in life, celebrated centuries later as a scientific hero. Van Gogh, who sold one painting while alive, now worshipped by millions. Malcolm X, once vilified as a threat, now honored with murals and documentaries. Their respect came, but only once they were no longer dangerous. It's the same in personal life. The coworker who ignored your ideas in the meeting, but reposts your success on LinkedIn. The family member who doubted your path, but brags about you at dinner parties. The friend who stayed quiet while you struggled, but now calls you inspiring. Late applause is not just a harmless delay. It's a form of social camouflage. A way for people to reposition themselves near power without risking anything. When praise becomes strategic, it reveals a truth no one wants to face. That many people don't respect you for who you are. They respect you for what you've already proven, and often, only once it's safe to do so. True respect doesn't wait for the crowd. It doesn't arrive when it's fashionable. It arrives when it costs something, when it stands alone, when it's inconvenient. Because respect that waits until the storm has passed was never weathering it with you. And this leads to the most chilling clue of all. A kind of false respect that doesn't arrive late, but arrives early, too early, eerily aligned with everything you believe. Not out of admiration, but out of strategy. When someone mirrors your values so perfectly, so seamlessly, that you let your guard down completely. That's the final performance, the mimicry of belief to gain your trust, before taking control. Are they agreeing with you? Or studying you? Some people don't argue with you. They echo you. Not because they believe what you believe, but because they've learned how to reflect your light just long enough to be welcomed into your world. They laugh at your jokes. They finish your sentences. They quote your heroes, mimic your tone, adopt your worldview, all with alarming precision. And yet, something feels off. The alignment is too perfect. The understanding was too immediate. It's not rapport, it's rehearsal. This is the final clue, the mirror that lies. It begins with trust. You meet someone who seems to get you instantly. They validate your struggles, reinforce your values, and even adopt your language. You think you've found an ally, but what you've really found is a mask, one carefully sculpted to gain your access. Psychological studies on mirroring reveal that people are more likely to trust those who subtly imitate their gestures, vocabulary, or emotional tone. It's a mechanism hardwired into the social brain. We see ourselves in them, and we feel safe. But what if that safety is being manufactured? In espionage, this tactic is standard practice. Spycraft manuals teach agents to study targets, ideologies and preferences, not to challenge them, but to mirror them. Blend in, be agreeable, become the reflection they want to see. Cult recruiters use the same playbook. They nod, they empathize, they echo your deepest frustrations. And then, once the bond is sealed, the control begins. This kind of mimicry isn't respected. It's infiltration, because true respect doesn't require pretending. It doesn't demand imitation. It allows for difference. But the person who mirrors you too closely may be doing so not out of admiration, but out of strategy. To lower your defenses, to slip past your boundaries, to learn your patterns until they own them, and, once they've studied the blueprint of your identity, they no longer need to hide. The mask slips, the mirror cracks, and suddenly you realize the person who always agreed with you was never really listening. They were building a replica, a psychological puppet that looked like loyalty but moved with a different hand. You weren't loved. You were decoded. The emotional result is disorienting. You question your instincts. You distrust connection. You wonder how many of your relationships are real and how many are just reflections engineered for access. Because when mimicry masquerades as respect, it leaves behind not intimacy, but paranoia. You begin to see the pattern, the compliment that conquers, the silence that screams, the gentle invasion, the applause that arrives too late, and now, the mirror that lies. These are the 5 masks of false respect. Each one designed not to uplift you, but to own you. Each one a tactic, a performance, a quiet domination. And now comes the hardest question of all. If this is what fake respect looks like, then what does real respect actually feel like? That answer is more uncomfortable and more liberating than most are willing to face. If fake respect is safe, is real respect dangerous? This is the paradox that sits beneath everything we've uncovered. Each false form of respect, the compliment that conquers, the silence that screams, the gentle invasion, the applause that arrives too late, and the mirror that lies, shares a common trait: they cost nothing. They carry no real risk. They maintain safety, ambiguity, and comfort for the one who gives them. There's no confrontation, no vulnerability, just theater. But real respect? That's something else entirely. Real respect is dangerous, because real respect requires seeing someone, truly seeing them, even when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, or threatening. It demands that you confront them with truth, and allow yourself to be confronted in return. It isn't the easy nod of agreement. It's the difficult act of acknowledgement. Not of status or performance, but of essence. Respect, in its rawest form, is not about hierarchy. It's about mutual recognition. You don't truly respect someone because they're above you or below you. You respect them because they're real. And reality, the full, unfiltered, imperfect humanity of a person, is never safe to look at directly. But that's what makes it worthy of reverence. Existential philosophers like Kierkegaard and Sartre insisted that authentic relationships require moral risk, that when you meet another person's soul to soul, you enter a space where masks fall away, and that space is volatile. You see not just who they are, but who you are in relation to them. Respect, then, becomes a mirror that does not lie. It reflects not only the other's dignity, but your own courage or cowardice. The samurai of feudal Japan had a ritual. Before a duel, 2 warriors would bow, not out of politeness, but out of profound recognition. They knew they were risking everything, their lives, their honor, their legacy, but in that moment, they saw the soul of the other as equal in its gravity. The bow was not submitted. It was sacred respect, forged in the fire of shared danger. That fire still exists, though modern life tries to extinguish it with pleasantries, performances, and passive masks. We're trained to mistake flattery for loyalty and neutrality for virtue. But real respect isn't soft, it's fierce. It will challenge your decisions. It will draw your boundaries. It will demand that you stand for something. Because if someone truly respects you, they won't let you betray your potential or theirs. Taoist philosophy holds that true harmony is born from the interplay of opposites. Yin and yang, soft and strong. True respect honors this tension. It doesn't seek to dissolve difference, but to see it clearly and hold it with care. That means respecting someone enough to disagree, to call them out, to walk away if you must. And just as importantly, to stay when staying takes strength. You'll know someone respects you not by how they praise you in public, but by how they challenge you in private. Not by how much they agree with you, but by how much they're willing to risk your comfort to speak a deeper truth. Not by how easy it feels, but by how real it becomes when ease is gone. Respect is not a currency. It's a recognition, a confrontation. A bow between souls that says, I see who you are, and I'm willing to be seen in return. There's a story, older than most myths, about a warrior who crossed a rival on the field. They stood alone, enemies by title. But before the fight, the warrior did something strange. He removed his sword and bowed. His rival, confused, asked, "Why do you bow to one who may soon kill you?" And the warrior said, "Because at this moment, you are not my enemy. You are the only one who understands what it means to be me." That is respect, not comfort, not performance, not manipulation, but the raw, dangerous, soul-shaking recognition of another's inner fire, and the courage to show them your own. So, ask yourself, who in your life sees you like that? Who tells you the truth even when it hurts? Who sets boundaries with you not to control, but to honor both your dignity and theirs? And more importantly, who do you respect like that? We spend our lives chasing validation from those who only reflect our masks. But perhaps the deeper path begins when we stop craving the applause of the crowd and start honoring the warrior who bows, even when no one else is watching. Because the real test of respect isn't whether they like you. It's whether they're willing to risk being real with you, and whether you're brave enough to do the same.